Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Bear with me 1 second. I can hear myself playing in the background. Never a good idea. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. You may have noticed the beard is gone, at least for now. A certain Mr. Muirhead sent me a screenshot of me going live over on Instagram yesterday, and I looked like Captain Birdseye. Why did none of you mention this before? I thought we were friends. Anyway, it's gone for now. It will come back, I'm sure. I have to say, I was a little concerned that my face might be two-tone after my recent return from Italy, but it turns out I'm just one shade of English pink all over. Speaking of the English, I'd like to get today's show done and dusted as close to 11 a.m. as is humanly possible, because I'm planning to watch the Lionesses take on the Matildas later this morning. I have a script to write, so I will have my laptop on my lap, so I'm not actually skiving in the strictest sense of the word. And if it goes to penalties again, I may have to just pause for a moment or two. Now, as you know, at least I hope you do, there is no show on Friday. So that means this is the penultimate show of the week. So we've packed it to the rafters with juicy digger goodness. So without further ado, what say I roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Wednesday, the 16th of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. I keep seeing myself in the screen. Look weird without the beard. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Hitachi reveals a new 8-tonner, and it's all electric. XCMG shows off its latest skid steer loader, and we take a dizzying drone journey with the fine folks over at Hagedorn, German demolition contractor. Plus, the JCB Pothole Pro that didn't stray too far from its home. And we'll get to all of that in a second. But first, let's peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. On this day, in 1501, Michelangelo was commissioned to create his statue of David at Florence Cathedral. In 1858, Queen Victoria telegraphed US President James Buchanan for the first time by transatlantic telegraph cable. In 1962, on this very day, Ringo Starr replaced Pete Best as the Beatles drummer. He played his first official concert just 2 days later. Here's a weird turn of events. In 1975, singer Peter Gabriel quit the rock group Genesis to be replaced by their then drummer Phil Collins. Exactly 5 years later, to the day, pianist Jules Holland quit the band Squeeze. And on the same day, Cozy Powell, the drummer, quit the rock supergroup Rainbow. Don't know why today, 16th of August, is a quit your own band type of day, but it is apparently. In 1992, Nigel Mansell finished second in the Hungarian Grand Prix to clinch his first Formula One championship. And in 2003, Cristiano Ronaldo made his debut for Manchester United. 20 years later, still winning trophies. And on this day in 2020, also Ronnie O'Sullivan won his 6th World Snooker Championship. He too is still winning trophies. Now, before we get into the meat of the show, let me remind you of today's question of the day. Yes, today's question of the day comes again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And it is this. If you were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, who would be your phone a friend and why? Personally, I've got a mate, Nick Dean, who has an encyclopedic knowledge of obscure bands and music. My son, Fred, is a font of all knowledge on all things movie related. And I guess if the question was related to construction legislation, I'd probably call Mick Norton. But what about you? Who would you call and why? £1 million on the line. You have a phone a friend. Who are you calling and why? Let us know in the chat. I think we can probably all agree that Hitachi makes some of the finest excavators known to mankind. So when the company drops a new model, it's a big deal. It's an even bigger deal when that machine is an all-electric 8-tonner. Take a look at this.
I'd like to introduce you to the ZX85-6EB, a new 8-ton battery-powered excavator designed to meet the growing demand for zero-emission equipment. This sustainable solution contributes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and has been designed to improve safety for operators, increase productivity on job site, and reduce life cycle costs for our customers. Let's take a closer look. With the new ZX85-6EB, you can walk continuously and emission-free throughout the day. Choose between battery-powered operation using 100 kWh lithium-ion batteries and wired operation, which allows you to walk while charging from CEE 400-volt 3-phase power source. For faster charging, an optional CCS2 allows you to fully recharge the battery in 45 minutes during break times. Depending on your application, you can expect average runtime of 5.5 hours. Thanks to zero emissions and reduced noise levels, this is the perfect machine for urban and civil engineering job sites. Its quiet performance gives you greater flexibility for operating outside of conventional working hours, and also creates a more comfortable working environment. The ZX85-6EB with 800-volt operating voltage provides the same powerful performance as the ZX85-US-6 diesel model. It shares the same hydraulic system and is also suited to walking safely and efficiently in small spaces with exceptional maneuverability. You could walk for even longer periods between charging with the optional increased 133 kWh battery capacity. This also increases the weight of the machine so that an extra counterweight is not needed. To ensure optimum and efficient performance, as well as high availability, a heat pump system keeps the battery module warm in cold weather. It also enhances durability and ensures long battery life. Now, let's look inside the cab. Comfortable and spacious, it has a heated air suspension seat. It's user-friendly with digitalized controls and a new 7-inch monitor that's easy to view and integrates every function, including the air conditioning. And the rear camera enhances the safety of the job site by providing excellent visibility. To help reduce life cycle costs, this new model has maintenance-free batteries and fewer serviceable components than diesel-powered alternatives, saving time as well as money. Remote monitoring of daily operational data, including the battery level and motor load factor, enables fleet managers to monitor energy usage, ensuring the machine is being operated as efficiently as possible. As well as reducing costs, this also contributes to the reliable performance and maximum uptime. As with all Hitachi products, the ZX85-6EB is built to last. As our latest sustainable solution, it will help to future-proof your fleet. And we look forward to working in partnership with you to build our future.
Well, as always, show you an electric machine and the avalanche begins. So let me go back to the chat. Let's have a look. Lots to talk about the size of the cab and various other bits and pieces. We'll come back to that, but the bits that I wanted to focus on. First of all, let's have a bit of positive. Al Grierson from Luxembourg. Morning, Al, who is on his way to Stein Expo next week, I understand. Keep us posted on that, Al. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but look forward to seeing your footage from there. There are many use cases for the electric machine, and most sites are in urban areas. Totally agree. And I think one of the things that I think we need to get accustomed to is obviously we are looking for a replacement for diesel, but there are also applications, and I'm thinking specifically in demolition, so soft strip work, where you're working indoors, no emissions, no noise. Fantastic idea. So before we dismiss them completely out of hand, let's not get too carried away. Dan Cullen says, technically not reducing is what digs this out and process battery. And in my opinion, not entirely sure what that means. As no one can be dangerous. No one can hear the engine. It's a good point. Although obviously Tesla have added engine noise to their Tesla. I don't suppose we could. It would be too much of a hardship to do that here. Gary Muirhead says, I wonder if our health and safety in this country will allow us to operate while it's plugged in. Can you imagine the rules and regulations? Good question. Let's have a look. Graham Footy Williams says, so in the winter you can't keep warm because there's no heater in it. Not entirely sure if that is the case, but obviously if there is a heater in it, it's going to be a draw on the battery, which is a bit of an issue. 1 hour breaks on site. I was last on 12 till 1. Now, here's a point. I don't think he was the only one to mention that. Let's have a look. There we are. Peter McKenna said, how many sites have 45-minute breaks in order to recharge that battery? We are about to make a fundamental shift in the way that this industry operates. We've gone from diesel that we've had for a century or more over to electric and ultimately to hydrogen as well. If we can entirely change our fuel system, why would it be so hard to change our system of actually taking a break in order to allow that machine to be recharged? And what about the people? Surely they're about due a recharge as well. I take an hour for lunch. Sometimes I take it sat right here and I'm still doing things. But, you know, trying to cram a sandwich down your neck in 15 minutes flat, it's not good for anyone. So obviously, I think we need to take a fundamental shift. I spoke about this yesterday over on Instagram, talking specifically about electric machines and the fact that, you know, we've had generations and generations of fitters and mechanics who can fix a diesel machine just by looking at it. They too are going to have to make a major shift. I don't think extending the daytime shift, the daytime break is going to be that big a deal at all. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna says, like all electric vehicles, they haven't thought about the driver's comfort in winter. Have they not? Have they not? I don't know. Is there a problem if you are recharging that machine? Sit on the machine while it's recharging with a heater on. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know. Electric machines is not the way forward, says Dan Cullen, who is digging his heels in. How long battery last? 2 years, 3, and expensive replacing them. All good points. You kill everyone on the site if you tracked over the cable. Good point. Question of the day. No, I'm going to come back to question of the day. The electric Hitachi is a tiny little tool, but 5 hours work duration, not good enough. Again, I will say this, I've said this till I'm almost blue in the face. We are looking right now at first gen electric machines, and I realize they've been around for 4, 5, possibly even 6 years, but we are still on first generation. Think back to how long, and I'm not talking about your Nokia phone because the battery on those lasted for about a lifetime, but think back to your very first iPhone, for example. The battery, if you got through a day, basically you had no friends. Now, I generally get a day and a half, sometimes even 2 days out of my mobile phone. It will come. It will come. And I'm going to tell you why I'm slightly pro-electric in just a second, but I'm going to keep going. While recharge, will the operator get paid? They absolutely should. They are recharging it. They absolutely should. Urban and Mining says CSW. It's Craig Williams. Well thought through Hitachi. Sure, the line cable has some huge negatives. However, I can see some applications this would be possible, i.e. mining. Do you want an 8-tonner in a mining application? Good point. Gary Muirhead, will you be going live on Instagram today at 1 p.m? No. No plans to do that whatsoever. I've got a day of writing today. I generally go live on Instagram, ideally about once a week, and I usually do it about 2:30 on a Tuesday. So no plans to do that at 1, unless there's something going on, in which case maybe I will. Norway has a lot of electric excavators already. And there is the point. You look at Norway, you look at Sweden. I think the Finns have got a few as well, and the Danish as well. They are making it work because they are committed. What's wrong with us following suit? Let's have a look. Jim Turner says we're on a small housing site, probably about 6 months, not including site strip and road sewers work. We're running in a compound off a generator. We have one 22-tonner, 4 13-tonners, and 1 5-tonner. So how would you all those head up to the compound for a top-up? Again, if we are no longer allowed to use diesel, we are going to need to figure that out. And not figuring it out is not an excuse to destroy the planet, in my opinion. You can have infrared heating, can you? I know that's good for keeping your car very warm. Not entirely sure about keeping people warm. What happens when it goes bang like a car does sometimes? I read somewhere the other day, and I wish I'd taken a note of where I read it. Apparently, and I know there's lots of talk about thermal runaway on lithium-ion batteries, but I read somewhere the other day that a fire on a lithium-ion product is about a lithium-ion vehicle is about 20 times less likely than on a diesel. Don't know where I got that from. Maybe nonsense, but Peter McKenna, Jim, it's amazing technology they're coming up with to power remote sites. Enough power to run a small town, taking not much space up. Had some brilliant chats at Plantworks about such a scenario, says Peter. There is Graham Williams. What are all the workers with electric cars with them on charge as well? Again, we need to figure these things out. And again, I was at ConExpo, not the last one, but the one before. They have induction charging. It is a possibility, much the same as these things you drop your mobile phone on. You can have those in like a car, almost like a semi garage, and you just basically pull the machine on. Up comes the little doofree under your machine, charge your machine, and on your way. We need to figure all these things out. We don't and never have got paid for a half-hour dinner, so extra 15 minutes is nothing really, says Ken Hatcher. I was using an electric fork truck on the farm in the 70s, all right for short stints, but I fancy they're still using the same technology apart from the battery. The batteries have come a hell of a long way, and they've still got a long way to go, as I say. Now, as I say, I am being slightly pro-electric, partly because that's what progress is all about. But I was planning to keep this under wraps. But now seems like the perfect opportunity to tell you about a new website that we're currently working on. I was actually working on it yesterday afternoon. It's going to be called Electric Earth Moving Equipment. Electric Earth Moving Equipment. That's 3 E's. So we're here in the office, we're calling it 3E for short. As the name suggests, it will feature only electric machines and the charging infrastructure that actually makes them tick. The website will have its own email newsletter, and I'm hoping to launch it around this time next week, hopefully with some exclusive new content from my trip to Germany with Volvo construction equipment. I will be notifying our WhatsApp group as soon as it goes live. So if you're part of the WhatsApp group, look out for that, and I'll let you know exactly where you can find it. And we will open it up to comments. So if you have any issues, as you clearly have, please let us have them. More than happy to take those on the chin. One of the questions that I want to ask Volvo while I'm there is electric really a replacement for diesel, or is it merely a stopgap until we sort out our reliance on hydrogen? All good points, all welcome. I'll keep you posted exactly when that goes live. Now, I've just been speaking about Volvo, so before we go on to the next item, here's another of their little inserts, just to keep the show on the road. And still, the comments keep coming in on electric. It's a fantastic idea, but finding all the electric is going to be a problem soon. totally agree. And I know we've already mentioned the potential problems of winter when everybody needs their heaters on, and that's going to be a draw on the batteries. We're also going to have, as we had last year, we were on the verge of the lights going out across the country because the grid, on the national grid here in the UK, was at maximum capacity. Is that going to be a problem? I believe it probably is. Peter McKenna says, big up hydrogen power. The plan, obviously, bearing in mind that a certain company down in Worthing watch my every move, I'm probably giving the game away. But if we get a good response to our electric equipment, our website, we may well follow it up with a hydrogen one. You can guarantee that they'll probably do something similar, but it'll be crap. So what the hell? Mick Norton says, once again, Build UK has missed the boat in ensuring sufficient infrastructure is in place on their sites for recharging electric machines. Is that down to Build UK or is that down to the individual contractors? Talk amongst yourselves. Now, this one is an exciting one because I think he's going to get to see this before I do. Al Grierson says, talking about electric machines, I'll get to see the Volvo L120 electric wheel loader in September at Matt Expo. You lucky, lucky boy. Any chance to get up close with a Volvo wheel loader, fantastic. But if it's an electric one, perhaps even sexier still. Keep us posted on that. Just thinking, could I make it to Matt Expo? I'll watch this space. If the world really gave a toss about saving the planet, we're running on HVO, and they'd be concentrating on irrigating in arid areas of the world to keep up with demand, says Jim Turner. But that will come after the world leaders, and I don't mean various governments, have made their money out of the battery revolution. There's a lot of money to be made right about now. You're absolutely right. Look out this year. I think we lost 2 coal power stations this year. Yep, absolutely. If you've got generators on site, how the thing that much diesel going to burn, get all these generators going. And again, surely having diesel generators charging electric machines that are supposed to be super clean and highly sustainable, charging them using diesel generators entirely defeats the object. Lots and lots to discuss, and we will be doing that over on our electric earth moving equipment E3 or 3E rather website just as soon as it goes live. Now, I spent the best part of the day on the XCMG stand at Bauma last year. I worked with them again at ConExpo earlier this year, and yet for some reason I had absolutely no idea that the world's 3rd largest construction equipment manufacturer had skid steer loaders in its product range. Turns out I need to pay closer attention.
Baby, this love, I'll never let it die. Can't be touched by no one. I like to see them try. I'm a madman for your touch, girl, I've lost control. I'm gonna make this last forever, don't tell me it's impossible. Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity. Cause I love you for infinity. I love you for infinity.
I have no idea why I'm surprised that XCMG makes skid steer loaders. Let's face it, they make pretty much everything else. Nice looking little machine though, I think you'll agree. Now, how about a spot of this? It is a pleasure I am yet to experience for myself, but I'm told that some children eventually flee the nest and leave the family home to start new lives all their own. They move miles away, some even emigrate in order to start their own life journeys. But there are some that just refuse to stray more than a few yards from their mother's apron strings. a bit like this JCB Pothole Pro.
We're here today on the A522 outside our heavy products factory in New Toxteth, and we're here today to hand over the brand new Pothole Pro to Staffordshire County Council. This will be the first outing for the new Pothole Pro.
Today's a really good day. It's the first day for the Pothole Pro out on site. What a great location to do this. You know, it's in the shadow of the JCB factory. It's at a location that's strategically massively important. My mailbox is full of complaints about this particular road, people getting to Uttoxeter. So it's critically important that we carried out these repairs today.
We try to make our roads the most safest and best as we can. And as part of that, we're really proud to be able to buy a Pothole Pro from a company based in Staffordshire, British made with a worldwide reputation. We're really fortunate to get this innovative piece of kit that we hope will enable us to fill more potholes and make our roads safer and better quality throughout the county.
The Pothole Pro is the only machine on the market to be able to cut, crop and clean with one machine, and the machine will be able to repair defects a lot faster and a lot more effectively, delivering a permanent first-time fix.
Everything is to hand with it on the levers. You've got your tilt rotate, your tarmac spade, all on your levers. Very simple to use. You familiarise yourself with what the buttons do. It's very easy to use.
We find that its versatility, the fact that it can travel to and from site itself, get into areas like it has done today, where it does trenches across areas on a diagonal, is going to be really useful. And the fact that it can start to plane and clean a pothole ready to be filled within 8 minutes.
The cab layout and the feel of the levers is very responsive. Light to touch, it feels very comfortable to drive. It really gives you a smooth ride when you're travelling down the road, and with the speed of 40k, it's very good.
The bottom line, what residents really want to see is road defects repaired quicker, more road defects repaired, and ultimately this machine, with its versatility and its 3-in-1 operation, means that we're ultimately saving money for the Staffordshire taxpayer.
It's great to see that Staffordshire County Council, working with Amy, are yet another council to recognise the benefits that the Pothole Pro provides and bring the machine on board to the contract.
An absolute fantastic feat of engineering, and we're really proud to have one, and we're looking forward to using it throughout Staffordshire.
I guess it would be very poor PR for the road outside the home of the Pothole Pro if it was itself blighted with potholes. Even so, that one barely left the production line. It almost still has its umbilical cord attached. But well done, JCB, and well done, Staffordshire County Council, for buying into the Pothole Pro.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Now, if you were here yesterday, you might recall that the team from German demolition contractor Hagedorn took the time out to join us on the show. I said at the time that they operated some superb equipment, that they produced some awesome video content. Well, when yesterday's show was over, I decided to go and check back myself, and lo and behold, they have a new film that proves my point perfectly. So sit back, cling on to something solid, and get ready, because this is one hell of a ride. Still clinging on to your breakfast? Good, but seriously, what an awesome film, and some terrific sports drone skills as well. Now it's time, as it always is about this time, for me to moan. My gripe today is about the human brain, or more specifically, it's about my human brain. This morning before the show, I had to run my wife over to her parents, as the three of them are headed off to the coast for the day. I didn't get the prep for today's show done yesterday, so I knew I had to get up early enough to finish today's script and create the thumbnail for the video and complete a whole host of other minor chores to make this show happen. So rather than the usual 6:30, I set my alarm for 5:30. Such is my commitment to you, our watching audience. Now, you would think that my brain would look at that and think, yes, tonight I need to fall asleep as quickly as possible to ensure that I'm very, very fresh when I awaken at this ungodly hour tomorrow. Oh no. Rather than going straight to sleep, my brain decided that late last night would be an ideal time to start worrying if I'd locked the back door, who West Ham are playing this weekend, if I'd actually fed the dogs. I had, obviously, because if I hadn't, they would have eaten me. Who sang the 80s song Brilliant Mind? It was Furniture, in case you're wondering. I have no idea whatsoever what time my brain finally allowed me to go to sleep, but it's exactly the same routine every time I have an early start. I have a taxi booked for 4:30 in the morning on Friday, so I should probably be pondering Olivia Newton-John's inside leg measurement, about 3:15. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets you goat, generally butters your proverbial parsnips? The daily gripe therapy session will return probably tomorrow. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show, but I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, and if you're not dashing off to watch the Lionesses against the Matildas, then please stick around, because the Craic will begin right after this final word from our key show sponsor. Yeah, playing the other thing this morning, just by way of a change. Let's have a look. Luke Harnish just joined us. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat in a minute. Can you imagine watching that through an Oculus Rift? That's the drone footage, obviously. No, I think I might actually be sick if I were watching that through an Oculus headset, or the new Apple one, the name of which has completely gone out of my head. Now, let me go back to the very beginning of the chat, when my computer will allow me. First off the mark this morning was Jim Turner. Jim usually arrives a couple of minutes in. Don't know quite why he was here early this morning, but he is welcome nonetheless. Good morning to you, Jim. Hope you're fit and well up in Nottinghamish. Good morning to you. Hope you're having a fine old day, my friend. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna is here as well. Good morning, breakfast show, he says. Yes, good morning, breakfast show indeed. Gary Muirhead, provider of that sign and many of our questions of the day. Good morning, Gary. He says, good morning, Mark. Good morning, gang. Good morning to you as well, Gary. Hope you're well as well. Let's have a look. Who do we get next? Craig Williams at CSW Groundworks says, a morning all. He has got a mixed bag of weather. He's also got a new video out. I saw it very briefly on LinkedIn before I came on live. I've bookmarked it. I haven't bookmarked it. That's a complete lie. It's sat at the top of my screen. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to go and watch it because I haven't seen it yet. Didn't have time. But Craig, good morning to you. Hope you're well. Mark Whiting, reliable as ever. Morning, Mark. Hope you're well as well. That should be the opening words to this show. Incidentally, I did get a message from YouTube yesterday, because if you were here for the after show chat yesterday, you will know that I swore. And YouTube picked it up. It wasn't a major deal. There was no strikes or warnings or anything like that, but they did remind me of my commitment. But morning, you feckers. Feckers, I think we can get away with feckers. Let's hope so. Ken Hatcher's here as well. Another mixed bag of weather down in Welsh Wales. Morning, Ken. Hope you're fitting well. Is that a slice of pizza? You're a bit early for pizza, surely. Isn't that Friday? Mick Norton. Now, Mick Norton. I mentioned Mick for a couple of reasons. First of all, he would be my one of my phoner friends if I I was going to say Chris Tarrant. Chris Tarrant hasn't done Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for quite some time. If Jeremy Clarkson said, for £1 million, we need you to answer a question on construction legislation, Mick Norton would unquestionably be my phone a friend. At the same time, Mick very kindly sent me an article that he wrote about. I'm trying to remember the right terminology, but it was a piece of machinery that he was familiar with back in his military days that was part dozer, part crawler loader, part everything else, a bit of a Swiss Army knife. He's written an absolute corking piece of an article on the machine and its application and everything else. If you get a chance, go and have a look. Mick, if you could let people know where they can find it. I'm not going to put it up myself because it's yours, but if you would like to share a link to exactly where people can find that, I'd be more than happy to share that among the watching masses. Graham, Footy Williams, these electric diggers, do they go bang like electric cars do sometimes? It is a concern, and I get the impression. Listen, I'm not one for a conspiracy theory. And I do realise that thermal runaway is an actual thing. I know we've had 1 or 2 iPhones and quite a few Android phones that have gone bang in the middle of the night. Didn't go bump in the night, they actually went bang in the night. So I do realise that is an issue. I know there have been a handful of Tesla fires as well. But petrol cars catch fire too. Diesel cars catch fire too. And I do wonder whether some of the scare stories about lithium ion may have originated in the oil and gas fraternity. Just saying. There we are. Good morning. The devil's good. How the devil are you? The devil's good. Yeah, thank you. I had to play it in my head. You see, I don't listen to what I say. You can probably tell that. Good morning. How the devil are you? The devil's good, says Chris. Morning, Chris. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. The devil, all you mad hatters today. Okay, let's have a look. There is our question today. Who would be your phone a friend? Yeah, imagine you're sat there in the chair, you've got 500 grand in your hand, you've got a question that you're not entirely sure about. Who are you phoning and why? I think that's an absolutely belting question, so well done on that, Gary. Just ahead of today's football, the Lionesses are more fluent than the men's football, although my preference would be to watch neither of them. Yeah, I've got to be honest, the South Africa World Cup basically cured me of being an England supporter because we were so abject I couldn't even bear to watch. I don't honestly care about the outcome today, but it is an excuse to be semi-patriotic and basically to take a bit of time out to watch the football on the telly. So I'm backing the Lionesses. We shall see. Now, here we are. First answer to my Gary Muirhead's question of the day. Who would be your phone a friend? Gary, Ken Hatcher rather says Nick Drew. Nick Drew. I think if the question were related to construction equipment or ice hockey, I think he would be your go-to guy. Anything else? Not entirely sure. I mean, he's a smart guy, but everything else? Don't know. Question of the day. My late father would be good to hear his voice again. What a fantastic answer. Yeah. It's funny you should say that. Although I haven't actually played it. As most of you know, I lost both my parents last year. And my dad was absolutely terrible on the phone. Just didn't like using the phone, didn't like picking it up, didn't like answering it or making a call. Very rarely phoned for anything. So on the rare occasions that he needed to speak to me, he used to get my mum to phone me and then hand him the phone. I don't know why. That's just the way he was. So on my iPhone, which is sat just there because I haven't turned it on, I've forgotten to bring Instagram into the chat. I've got some messages from my mum. I could, if I wanted to, go and listen to my mum's voice. I've got nothing from my dad. And to make matters worse, I don't know if I may have mentioned this in the past. The band Elbow singer Guy Garvey knew that his dad was not long for this world, so took the time to actually go and record a lot of conversations with his dad, talking about his dad's upbringing and his childhood and everything else. And he basically wanted those for himself and for his children and grandchildren and so on down the line. But unfortunately, my father ultimately died. I mean, he didn't die of COPD, but he did suffer from COPD. So prolonged conversations were not really an option. So my first response was really just go and stick my iPhone under his chin and just chat. But he didn't do a lot of chatting because he couldn't. So yes, so good. That's a long way of saying. Question of the day: my late father would be good to hear his voice again. Yes, it would be good to hear my dad's voice again. He'd probably be telling me that I've done something wrong because he used to do that quite a bit. Glenn Johnson said, "Good morning." Good morning to you, Glenn. Al Grierson, very jealous of Al. He's off to Stein Expo, which I think is next week, and he's off to Matt Expo to see that Volvo L120 as well. Happy days. Let's have a look. There is Craig Williamson's looking good. Would the beard shave be the opening footage for the road journey to Germany? No, you see, you're thinking like a creative, Craig. I wish I'd thought of that. No, it really was. I don't even know. I'm looking at myself now, right? And so there's a camera there, and my image is right there. So I know what I look like, but Gary Muirhead sent me a photograph of me going live on Instagram yesterday, and I did look like a cross between Santa Claus and Captain Birdseye. So literally, thank you, Gary. Thank you for sending that photograph. I put the phone down, I went upstairs, got rid. It will look tidier for when I go to Volvo, but no, that was not the plan. Now, we're talking about the 8-tonner. We're talking about the 8-tonner from Hitachi. Dan Cullen says, hope the bloody cab is bigger as worst cab on an 8-tonner and yet another electric machine. Not my cup of tea. In case of a fire, how much water, chemicals to put it out? Electric, not the way forward, in my honest opinion. I can't remember, I mean, aside from training and competence cars and that kind of thing, I can't actually remember a more divisive and emotive subject crossing this channel than electric machines. And as I say, I do wonder if some of the scare stories about electric and lithium ion have originated with oil and gas. But it does seem to be that people are either electric, fantastic, no noise, no emissions. We'll be able to work in schools and hospitals and work through the night and all the advantages. And then there's the other half that's go electric. Nope, not for me, thank you very much. Very, very divisive. Again, good reason to start a website about it. I'll keep you posted. Stephen Guthrie says, morning, everyone. More specifically, Stephen, good morning to you. Thank you for being here. Question of the day. Mine would be Nigel Williams. Nigel Williams would be a good call. Peter McKenna, he is an encyclopedia. If he is an encyclopedia, he will probably tell you that you spelled encyclopedia wrong. Just saying. I have an eye for these things. Goes with the job. Looks a nice machine, says Ken Hatchett, talking about the Hitachi. I totally agree. Then again, when was the last time you looked at a Hitachi excavator and thought, that doesn't look up to much? I don't think that's ever happened, is it? Let's have a look. Peter McKenna, still not as claustrophobic as a 3-ton Komatsu. Renault cars, according to Graham Williams, you have to turn them upside down to put the fires out. Exactly the same on a digger. Is it the same on a digger? Now, bearing in mind, I mean, I realise that electric machines have not achieved the sales impact I think many manufacturers were hoping for. We have yet to see a major plant hire or rental company saying, yes, we'll take 200 of those fine electric diggers for yours. So I realise we're running short, running behind schedule as far as electric machines are concerned. Now, bearing in mind we live in the world of social media, so if somebody gets a machine bogged down, it's on Facebook. If somebody tips a machine over, it's on Facebook and Instagram. If there were electric mini digger fires happening all over the place, I would have seen one by now. I haven't seen one. Now, admittedly, I don't spend any time actually on Facebook. I spend some time on Instagram. I am yet to see these dreaded fires that everybody's talking about. Are they real? Are they a figment of our imagination? Are they scare stories? I don't know the answer. If anybody could advise, I'd love to hear from you. Craig Williams is cheating, but in a very creative way. Question of the day, who would be your phone a friend? He says, Alexa. I have to say it quietly because I've got one sat right, which is probably a really stupid idea. I've got one sat right by my desk because I can occasionally say things like her name play Demolition News Radio, and she does. How cool is that? Yours will do it as well. If ever you want to listen to my podcast, or for that matter, Nigel Williams' podcast, just say, hey, her name, play Demolition News Radio, or play From the Seat of the Cab, and they will do so. How many sites have 45-minute breaks? It's a good point. It is a good point, and I'm taking that entirely on board. But we are on the cusp of a radical shake-up of this industry. We've all become accustomed to using diesel and to everything that goes with it. You know, our on-site fueling is geared towards that. Our machine usage is geared towards that. Our operators and our fitters are geared towards that. But it's going away. Now, some of us will have hung up our hard hats long before it actually comes to pass, but it is going away. And if we're going to make such a fundamental change in that part of the industry, surely making an additional change of an additional 15 minutes for the operator to have a fag, not a good idea. Have a bite to eat, have a drink, go to the loo, whatever it might be, while his or her machine is charging. Then surely, if we can shift our focus from one type of fuel entirely to another, then surely extending our break times is not beyond the wit of man. Al Grierson, there's so many use cases for an electric machine. Most sites are in urban areas. One of the most interesting conversations I had with Volvo, with my mate Timur Abid over at Volvo Construction Equipment when I was at the Nürburgring around about October last year. He actually made that point. You know, we're looking at a like-for-like switch. There will be use cases where that is absolutely the case, but there are certain applications, like, for example, could you work in a live hospital or a live school or a live library with a machine that was belching diesel fumes? No, you could not. Could you do it with an electric machine that is producing no noise and no emissions whatsoever? Yes, you could. So it is going to be a partial replacement for diesel. Electric will, hydrogen will, but it will also open up new avenues. And as I said in the show itself, one of the key ones that I'm looking at, wouldn't it be lovely if we could mechanise the soft strip process within demolition? It's one of the areas that is most labour intensive. As it's most labour intensive, it's most likely to cause accidents, people getting cuts and grazes, getting crap in their eye and stuff like that. What about if we could just take man out of that equation and stick in an electric machine? No noise, no emissions, no fear of being overcome by fumes. And as they say, Bob's your uncle. That's the way I'm looking at it. They're technically not reducing as what digs this out and process battery. Dangerous on site, no one can hear the engine. Again, for one thing, it is possible to add sound to a Tesla. I'm sure we could add sound to an electric machine. But what if, you know, we're talking about making some very, very fundamental and far-reaching changes within the industry. While we're going about doing that, why don't we just finally get around to segregating man and machine? You know, and we've got a perfect excuse. Machines are now silent, therefore the risk of injury has increased because you can't hear them coming, and therefore we are going to have men over here, machines over there, and never the twain shall meet. Is that hard? Only a matter of planning. I wonder if the health and safety in the country will allow us to operate while it's plugged in. Can you imagine the rules and regulations? Yes, I can imagine the rules and regulations. I would imagine there is a little department of health and safety executive now beavering away on how can we make this as hard as possible. Yes. Now, Peter McKenna says, wind the jukebox back up, Mark. Not sure what that means. Was that didn't like the Hitachi music? Don't know. Cab too small, like all Hitachi 8-tonners. So in the wintertime, we go back to electric machines again. You can't keep warm. There's no heater on it. Is there no heater on it? or is it just a case that it's got a heater, but you need to use it sparingly so that you're not draining the battery? I don't know the answer to that. 1 hour break on site. I was last on 12 till 1, says Stephen Guthrie. It's, yeah, I mean, I've certainly been on sites where it is an hour, and if that's the way it's got to be, then that's the way it's got to be. Listen, ultimately, you know, bearing in mind we are still talking about first generation machines here. If that battery is not going to last the entire day, your employer or the main contractor or the client has got a choice. I can either take 45 minutes or an hour for my lunch break and charge that machine back up to maximum, or I can work until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, after which the whole thing's going to conk out and I'm just going to have to bugger off home. Choice is yours. That's the situation. So we do need to make some changes. Like all electric vehicles, they haven't thought about the driver's comfort in winter. Again, have they not? Do we have proof of this? And if we do have proof of it, I'm sure it will come. And bearing in mind, somebody mentioned it, I think it may well have been Al Grierson, I'll come to it in a second. Bearing in mind some of the people that have been very quick to adopt these types of machines are up in Scandinavia. Sweden, Norway, Denmark. It gets pretty chilly in those places. And I would like to think that the Swedes, the Swedes, the Danes and the Norwegians are sensible enough to say, it gets quite parky here in the winter. Has this thing got a heater? Who's up next? Dan Cullen. Electric machines not the way forward. How long would a battery last? 2 to 3 years and expensive replacing. All good points, all good valid points, all points that I plan to raise with the fine folks at Volvo and a bunch of other people, because obviously we've got a new website to populate. But I will say again, first generation batteries, we will get better. And I mentioned it, I can't remember if I mentioned it here or I mentioned it somewhere else, speaking to the people over on Electric Vehicle Charging and Infrastructure magazine, brand new magazine, incidentally, from Route 1 Publishing. There is work going on did they call it saline ion? I think they called it. So completely different technology and far more efficient. We are at first generation. Think back to your first generation iPhone. No apps, and it lasted minutes. Look at it now. Apps for everything, and your battery lasts a good day, day and a half. Change will come. But again, I think it with an iPhone, the iPhone was a bit of a suck it and see from Apple initially, and then when they realised actually people will love the iPhone and we're selling millions of them, I think the same rules will apply with construction equipment. I think the development has been very, very quick, but I think it will get even quicker when we start to see volumes of these machines going out the door. You'll kill everyone on the site if you tracked over the cable. Question today. My father, he's a wealth of knowledge and also my hero. Isn't that a lovely thing? Yeah, and listen, I feel exactly the same. I felt exactly the same about my dad, and thankfully I did get the opportunity to tell him that as well. And bear in mind, he was my hero when I was growing up. We had a bit of a rough few years when I discovered alcohol, or more specifically, when alcohol had a grip on me. We had a bit of a torrid time between us, because my dad was teetotal my entire life. Never thought I'd see the day where I'd end up going exactly the same way, but there we are. But no, he was my hero growing up, and I got to a point at one point in my life where I started to question my hero worship of my dad. Now, it's something I've spoken to my sister about. He was never, I need to make this very clear, he's never abusive towards my mum, but he ruled the house. If he got into the habit of having his dinner at 6 o'clock in the evening, and he expected his dinner to be on the table at 6 o'clock in the evening. And if my mum had gone out and was late back home, didn't do anything or say anything, but she did get the silent treatment on quite a few occasions. My dad, also part of that generation, was pretty racist in a lot of his views. So, I think our views of the world differed, and I think when I got older I started to realise that. But Still my hero. Still taught me to be the person that I am, for good or bad. Taught me to fish. I think the way that I treat my wife is partly reflective of what he did, but partly in kind of going the opposite way, reaction to what he did, and the way I've raised my kids. You know, my dad was very strict. I've been less strict. I'd like to think I'm probably better friends with my children than I was with my dad for a period. But he did. He brought me into the world, and he made me the guy I am. So yeah, still my hero to this very day. Mick Norton, the electric Hitachi is a tiny little tool, but 5 hours work duration is not good enough. It wouldn't take long for 5 to become 7 to become 10, would it? Well, will the operator get paid while the machine is recharging? It's a good point. I'm sure that will vary from employer to employer, site to site, application to application. But again, if you are going to be forced to be sat doing nothing for 45 minutes or an hour, then something needs to give. Let's have a look. Now, will you be going live on Instagram today at 1 p.m? I have no plans to do so. Is something happening at 1 p.m. today? You've got me worried now, Gary. Have I missed something? If there's something happening at 1 p.m. today and I need to be live, I can and I will. But as it stands at the moment, I have no actual intentions to do so. Al Grierson says Norway has a lot of electric excavators already. Yes, it does. And again, I think that's one of the things where we need to do a bit of catching up in terms of our attitude towards sustainability. I find that the Scandinavians and the Dutch, I don't know why the Dutch, but it's possibly the lack of resources or finite resources and stuff, but the Scandinavians and the Dutch look at sustainability as a lifestyle choice. You know, we are going to safeguard our bit of the planet, and hopefully everybody else will follow suit. Whereas here in the UK, we seem to understand the threat of climate change and everything else, but look for excuses to do nothing about it. I think the Americans are worse than that. I think the Americans actively seek ways to destroy the planet. The Chinese are no better either. But here in the UK, rather than just taking it on face value, this is what we need to do, how about we do it? It's but what if? What if this? What if that? What if? Now is not the time for what if. What did somebody say the other day? The climate is at boiling point already. We can't afford to be sitting on our hands. We need to make the change. And if that change means that we take a little bit longer for lunch, then so be it. Let's have a look. Apparently you can have infrared heating. Who knew? As I say, I've seen them keeping plates of food warm in carveries and stuff. Didn't know you could do that for humans. Graham Williams, what happens when it goes bang like a car does sometimes? Does it? As I say, I have seen images of Tesla fires. I have, no question about it. But other cars catch fire. I've been in a car that's caught fire before now, a petrol car that caught fire. I was working in a newsagent's between going from school to college, and a petrol car exploded outside my front door. Thought we were being bombed. Couldn't understand why anyone would bomb Belmont in Surrey. Hardly a great strategic place in the country. But no, there was an almighty bang, and literally it blew the bonnet off. Nothing to do with electric whatsoever. Jim, it's amazing technology they're coming up with the power remote sites. Enough power to run a small town, taking not much space up. Had some brilliant chats at PlantWorks about such a scenario. And again, look at the. Go back and have a look at ConExpo 2020. I did actually cover one of these kind of carport things with the induction charging. But look at what's happened down with eVision, the people that do the hire of Teslas. They've got a fleet of, last I heard, probably 60 plus Teslas down in Kent. It's an offshoot of HE Services, the plant hire company. And they've got this huge warehouse shed, open fronted, and the entire thing, the entire roof is made up of solar panels. So they are basically charging their cars free of charge, and they are always ready. It's not. Imagine a site like let's say Hinkley Point, because HS2 is kind of a moving thing, but think about Hinkley Point, where we're going to be static for quite some time. Think about the bit of HS2 down in the north of London. Can't remember the name of it. Old Oak Common, that's the bit. That site has been live now for 5-6 years. Demolition and now reconstruction as well. To put in solar panels and a charging station for electric machines would have been very, very straightforward, and that's the way we need to be thinking. What are all the workers with electric cars, with them on charge as well? Yeah, it is going to be a challenge. It is going to be a challenge. Gary Muirhead says, I've got an old Nokia 101, it's been in the drawer for 10 years, still got battery in it. Yep, absolutely. And best of all with the old Nokias, if you needed to, you could probably bang a nail into a piece of wood with them as well, because that's the way they were made. We don't and never have got paid for half our dinner, so an extra 15 minutes is nothing really. Is that the universal case? I'd like to know. I mean, because I don't work on site, I don't know. Do you not get paid for your lunch break? Is that everyone? I'm interested to know. I was using an electric fork truck on a farm in the 70s, all right in short stints, but I fancy they're still using the same technology apart from the batteries. As I say, the batteries have come a long way, and they've still got a long way to go. You know, as I say, I think we are most likely. I mean, I think most likely we are probably borrowing technology from electric vehicles, but our use case is very different. I think by the time we get to second and possibly third generation lithium ion in the construction industry, the argument may be very different. Look, you know, recent example, look at the first generation hybrid machines from the likes of Komatsu. They were okay, but look at the third generation. They are brilliant. And that's all happened in the space of 5-6 years, I guess. It's a fantastic idea, but finding electric, all the electric is going to be a problem soon. As I say, yeah, that is going to be a concern come the winter time, not just because of keeping operators warm in their cabs, but we were at breaking point on the national grid this time, or not this time, in I think it's around about January, February last year. There were concerns about the lights going out because we had insufficient power, and we have lost electric production for capability and capacity since then as well. So it is going to be a concern. But again, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. What is the choice? Restart those coal-fired power stations and make the climate warmer. So rather than sitting here worrying about can we put our heaters on, we're worrying about whether we're going to wake up underwater tomorrow. It's an easy choice to make. Big up hydrogen power. Again, I think we need to understand exactly where we are with electric and hydrogen. One of the things I've written for our new 3E website already is, are electric machines actually a viable alternative to diesel, or are they merely a stopgap until we pull our finger out and get all things sorted with hydrogen and the infrastructure to run it? I'll be interested to see exactly how that all turns out. There is the link to our WhatsApp group. I know a lot of you are already part of our WhatsApp group, but if you're not, please come and join us. The chat goes on. Al Grierson is going to see the electric L120 wheel loader from Volvo at Met Expo in September. I don't think I've ever been to Met Expo. I think I've reported on it from afar. Don't think I've ever been. We need to change that. Wish it was that easy to change attachments. I think that was probably relating to the XCMG. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna says, Mick Norton, the UK still doesn't have the amount of chargers needed to help to keep up the demand for electric cars and HGV market. How the hell are construction companies going to do any better? It's all a good point. Now, Gary Muirhead says, can you please ask Volvo when you're there if they can't enhance the conceit energy from the movement of the machine? Conceit energy? When the rams are moving and the machine is slewing and tracking. Are you talking about energy recovery from the slewing and the braking? Let me know and I'll ask the question. On-site battery packs are the next big thing. Yeah, I would honestly say if you're looking for something to invest in, I think my first choice would be to back a hydrogen company, but battery packs, they're going to be a big deal. Mick Norton says, I can see the advantages of considering an electric machine for working in hospitals, schools, indoor demolition or zoos, but with 12-hour charge needed, lack of infrastructure, additional cost, remoteness of some sites, lack of trained fitter support, and working in residential areas with increased electricity costs to the client, make it an uphill struggle. Well, you have basically just listed all of the issues that I want to address with the folks at Volvo. But you're absolutely right. I think on paper, when you look at it, electric machines, no emissions, completely silent, very few moving parts. What a way to go. However, and then there's a long list of howevers, all good points. Big yellow injection, JCB are the best at administering it. Aren't they just? And listen, I'm off to watch the Lionesses in a minute, so I am feeling slightly patriotic today. But do you not get a bit of a warm, fuzzy feeling when you see JCB and you think, they're Brits, they are? How cool is that? Yeah, absolutely right. It's not the only thing on the market. The Pothole Pro, there are others out there, the German machines that can capability of filling and rolling the tarmac into the holes. Totally agree. Hydrogen can be produced in remote area using green power and then pumped, transported to the user, which must be better than producing batteries. That way, our ever-shrinking world can make good use of inhospitable places with green energy production. Interesting point. I saw our friend Callum McIntosh talking this morning, actually, about the prospect for hydrogen backhoe loaders, specifically JCB hydrogen backhoe loaders, on the Orkney Isles. Apparently, the Orkneys have a big population of backhoe loaders, and they are also considering the move to hydrogen. Would be a perfect marriage. I'd like a trip to the Orkneys to go and see some hydrogen-powered backhoe loaders. So JCB, listen to Callum McIntosh, make that happen, and then invite me to go and have a look. Nice kit. That was talking about the JCB, not the hydrogen, the Pothole Pro. You can put all of those attachments on a rubber duck or a 180 machine. Yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can. Predictable as ever. Gary Muirhead says, fantastic to see JCB using a steel wrist on the Pothole Pro. Well done, JCB. Why would you not? Why would you not? I think the Pothole Pro, obviously, it's based on a Hydro Dig, top spec. If you're going to go for a tilt rotator, why not go for top spec one? Steel wrist is precisely that. Nice footage with an FPV drone, says Peter McKenna. Totally agree. Motion sickness is algorithm. More or less how I felt when I first saw it, actually. And Luke Arney's backing that up. Imagine watching that through an Oculus Rift headset. I have to admit, the Oculus Rift, a couple of times I've played around with VR, it does make me feel slightly queasy anyway. There's something slightly discombobulating about it. It's the lack of reality. And I have to say, the first time I ever used it to any real degree was I was on a stand with Komatsu. I think it may have been at a Bauma show, and they put it on, and I was out in the field surrounded by Komatsu machines as far as the eye could see, and I could look up and see the sky, I could look down and see the ground, and I could look all around, and there was things going on all around me. And then somebody spoke to me in real life, spoke to me in my left ear. And it made me jump out of my skin because I'd already looked and there was nobody there. And I'd already bought into the fact that I was completely alone in this virtual world. And then somebody spoke to me, frightened the bejesus out of me. The Pothole Pro is probably a great tool, but the process needs to be completed properly, as it's the saw cut and cover band stops the repair breaking down again. Good point, Jim. I'm sorry, I just got distracted by something else. I lost brain cells when I had respiratory failure 4 years ago. So losing the app capability of thinking for myself, I either need telling more than once or need to write stuff down or write in a diary. That's if I can remember to write it down straight after being told. I know how Alzheimer's patients feel. Don't have it to that degree, and I've never had respiratory failure, but I do sense the creeping of the ears, and I do. There is a notepad basically follows me everywhere for that very same reason. If I don't write it down, it's gone. If somebody asks me to do something, I either have to do it right then, right now, or I have to write it down, or it won't get done. Lou Carney says, this is super sexist. We don't mind that. But how women get on with chores, when men do them, they have to give us a blow-by-blow account of what they've done. Do we do that? Yeah, we do, don't we? We do. Although I've already mentioned that my wife is not here today, and chances are she's probably not listening to me right now. So I'm going to tell you a little story about my sister, more specifically about not my sister, about my wife's sister. My wife's parents are quite elderly, both have suffered from ill health and stuff. So my wife is around there 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week. She's with them all day today and so on. So she goes around, fetches their shopping, takes them to hospital appointments, takes them to dental appointments and all this sort of stuff. Because that's what you do as the offspring of an elderly person. Well, my wife's sister does more or less the same thing. Only when she does it, she has to list it. Oh yes, I was there at 8 o'clock and I had to put them in the car and I took them to the hospital and then I took them for a cup of tea and I took them back home again and I made sure they were sat in front. We all do that. They're not my parents and I do that. I don't need a list. Some people need the glory, don't they? My wife tells me that what she has done and what I have. That's a wife thing, and I don't care if it does come across as sexist. That's exactly the same in this house. Mark, you've groomed the beard, hence the disoriented stuff today. It's thrown the balance off. I'm all over the place today. It's really thrown the balance off. The occasional lapse into the vernacular with a few Anglo-Saxon expletives is good for the soul. Listen, I F and Jeff like nobody's business. One of the main reasons I work in demolition is because they swear almost as much as I do. The problem is YouTube has an issue with it. And YouTube recently changed its algorithm. In that it used to be if you swore in the first 2 minutes of a video, it would lessen and sometimes remove entirely your ability to monetize that video. Well, they relaxed the rules, and now it's a case of if you swear, I think in the first 8 seconds or something, because I don't swear very often on here, I don't pay too much attention. But it's got me into the habit. I mean, I do swear from time to time, but it's very, very few and far between. But I was quite angry yesterday about the guy that had died up at the Everton Football Stadium. Incidentally, I haven't got the information in front of me, but the young guy has actually been named today. It turns out he was actually an Everton supporter. And I don't know whether that makes it better or even worse, the fact that he died on the construction of the new Everton Stadium and never got to actually see it open. Probably worse, I think. Question of the day, Lou Carney says, depends on what the question is. Sport would be Pete, her husband. Film and music would be Isaac, that's her son. Food would be Jacob, her other son. It's a good setup you've got there, Lou. Question of the day, back in the day, it would have to be the late Peter Ustinov, a genius. Yeah, I would say the same today about Stephen Fry. If I had to phone a friend, he's not my friend, I've never met him, but if I could phone Stephen Fry, that'd be a good starting point. So glad you put husband in brackets. I would be the worst person to ring for sports questions. Is there another money-making opportunity or scam with a CITB to say you'll need to pay for another category on your card to operate electric machines? Oh yeah. Guaranteed. And we will have exactly the same thing when we get to hydrogen machines as well. The training providers, the card providers will be rubbing their hands together right about now and promising the bank manager a sudden influx of money because they will come up with some vital new piece of plastic that accompanies electric machines and hydrogen machines. Peter McKenna is offering a life hack. Turn any sofa into a sofa bed by telling your wife to calm down. Yeah. In our last house, we actually had an outhouse, which I used as my office. Slept in there a couple of times for one reason or another. Almost entirely not of my choosing. Years ago, you used to get paid greasing time. There's a possibility of getting paid charging time, something they can take off the weight later. Good point. Have to scoot. Have a great time away. Thank you very much indeed, Craig. Thank you very much indeed for that. I will be catching up with your video a little bit later this morning. Question of the day. Phone an old weather's hack like you. I have your number. Yeah, I have. Listen, if you, and I'll say this to everybody, Chris, everybody, if you find yourself on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and the question to win $1 million is something about the band Ultravox, phone me up. I'll sort you out. Anything else? Phone somebody better, really. One thing to remember is that the machine does not use power when idling, only when moving the levers or the tracks, aside from the radio. What about the heater? Surely it's drawing power if you're using the heater. Peter McKenna says, I'm shocked you didn't mention my Today in History. What? Have I missed something? Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going back through the chat. Oh, hang on a minute. Here we go. Peter McKenna. Don't know how I missed this one because it's a long one. 1952, on this day, the holiday village of Lynmouth in North Devon was devastated by flooding caused by the local rivers East and West Lynn overflowing due to torrential rain in the previous 24 hours. Rows of local cottages, including the occupants, were smashed as the river, which had burst its banks, came flooding down the local high street. The village lost all power, phones and gas. There are believed to be 30 people missing, presumed dead. Never heard that story before. 1952, the year of the Jubilee. Maybe it got lost in all the Jubilee celebrations. But thank you for that, Peter. Apologies for missing that. I don't know how I skipped past that. Have a fantastic day, guys, says Dan Cullen. Stay safe. Yep, good call. Depends on company. Some companies paid first half hour and second don't pay for second break. Okay. Top of the morning, Lou Carney, says Dan Cullen. Dan Cullen also says, if offices and all these buildings in the cities turn off lights and power sources, we may be able to manage. It's a good point. Saving the planet is about using less energy and growing more plants. So ban air conditioning and plant more trees for shade, or design city buildings to promote shade at peak times of the day, rather than creating office buildings like the one in London that reflected sunlight with such intensity it took the paint off locally parked cars. Can't remember the name of the building, but that actually happened. Well, Lou Carney, nowadays it's women on social media doing similar. Now I see so-called influencers. I'm not going to get drawn into that. Not here anyway. And Lou Carney, one of my favourite expressions, TTFN. Yes, ta-ta for now. I would imagine that the Lionesses and the Matildas kicked off roughly 19 minutes ago. So because I've got too much of this, the cheese grater, it was the cheese grater, was it? Okay. That was the building that melted the paint off the local cars. Yes, I've missed 19 minutes of the football because you guys had too much to say. I don't mind that. I'm quite comfortable with that. So I'm going to head off and go and cheer on the English. Keep my fingers crossed it doesn't go to penalties because my nerves are shot anyway. I'll be back here tomorrow for the final show of the week. Don't forget, no show on Friday because I will be in Germany talking all things electric and watching cars go past at roughly that speed. Till then, everybody have a fantastic day. Look after yourself. Come on, you Lionesses. See you tomorrow.